Hello, my name is Daisy, and I wanted to start this presentation off with a story. I'm in my final year at UCC studying biotechnology, and I came into college through two different schemes, the DARE scheme and the HERE scheme. I have a physical disability called EDS, and I'm also autistic. My path to college was not easy. I had to fight tooth and nail to get any supports in secondary school, and that all came to a head when I was in 5th year and got really sick. I was missing 90% of my classes, and I was getting very little support to catch up. I went from straight A's to failing exams to leaving school 3 months into the year. Thankfully, after taking the year to recover, I was able to study from home for 6th year and take the Leaving Cert with the rest of my class. Coming into UCC was like a breath of fresh air. I never had to advocate for myself. I got accommodations that I never even knew I could ask for. But last year, I went into the worst flare-up I've had since I last left school. I was 40 hours behind on my coursework, and I was struggling to do even 3 hours of learning a day. My mum then went into hospital for 5 weeks, which only added to the stress I was under. Honestly, I was days away from dropping out of college. But through the support and help I got from UCC, history didn't repeat itself. I had weekly meetings with my support officer from Access. I got additional tutoring through UCC. I got new accommodations for my exams, and all of my lectures were recorded, meaning that when I was well enough, I had the flexibility to catch up. Through discussion with UCC, I decided to defer 2 of my 6 exams, which made all of my exams just that bit more manageable. I never thought I would be able to sit those exams, never mind pass them. But through the help and support I received from UCC, I was able to get a first-class honours. I'm doing much better now, and I'm really excited to be part of the voice of the future of inclusion in UCC as part of the new student advisory panel to guide the future of access and the development of UCC's strategic plan. This is just a snapshot of the help and support I've received in UCC, and I wish I could speak longer on it, but I'm going to pass you over to Laura to speak about the history of UDL at UCC.
UCC are so proud to have led the way nationally in implementing UDL as a guiding institutional framework. Simply put, we have been doing UDL for decades. So let me talk you through a little of our timeline. Back in 1984, UCC established the first teaching and learning development centre in the country. A series of regular teaching and learning seminars throughout the 1980s and 90s led to the creation of a community of learning and practice. And this in turn led to the creation of a suite of accredited programmes for staff, which were launched in 2003. This included our postgraduate certificate, diploma and masters in teaching and learning in higher education. In the earliest days of our work, we prioritised student diversity, and we worked on the principle that students learn in different ways. Thus, we supported our colleagues who support student learning to teach and assess in a variety of ways. And our focus throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s, which so centrally acknowledged and prioritised student diversity and inclusion, prepared us really well for the international focus on UDL, which was emergent by 2008. By 2010, we became highly strategic in our embracing of UDL. We placed an even greater emphasis in our accredited programmes on designing curricula for student diversity and inclusion. And UDL has been a cornerstone topic of our postgraduate certificate and diploma in teaching and learning ever since. Several of our master's students have also continued with this UDL specialism and have incorporated UDL as a foundational framework for their master's research in teaching and learning. More recently then, in 2021, our Inclusive UCC initiative was launched. The work of Inclusive UCC works to support the institution-wide implementation of universal design principles right across the spectrum of our university. This work, this institution-wide implementation of universal design, is supported by a range of stakeholders from our colleagues in our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Unit, Access UCC and Disability Support. The combined approach of these units means that at UCC, we enact a cohesive and integrated approach to inclusion with a really strong focus on collaborative work amongst our different stakeholders. So, our commitment to student diversity and inclusion since the 1980s means that at UCC, UDL is a core competence of our teaching and learning staff. At UCC, 51% of our current academic staff have a teaching and learning qualification, and that means that they have been taught explicitly about UDL. But not only have they been taught about UDL, they have been supported to implement the UDL principles in their teaching, learning and assessment practices. And what does that look like in numbers? Well, it means that over 1,500 of our staff have a UDL qualification, either through our teaching and learning programs or through the digital badge, which we've been running since 2018. And what this means is that this UDL knowledge percolates out through the university from the individuals engaged in this training, and it has resulted in really strong behavioural and cultural change in our institution. So before I hand over to James, I'd like us to take a minute to hear from our UCC President, Deputy President and Registrar who joins us today, and our Vice President for Learning and Teaching who's linking in online, who will speak about their vision for an inclusive UCC. Also, really importantly, we're going to hear from some of our students about their experience of life at UCC.
More has changed in terms of learning and teaching at UCC since March 2020 than in the 35 years that I've been on campus as staff and student. And indeed, it's arguably more than in our 176 years of history.
We've worked very hard with the Students' Union to ensure that we're hearing the voice of the student.
An inclusive UCC is one where every member can equally perceive, understand and navigate an engaged life. It means that everyone can contribute equally without barriers.
As a professor of ecology, the central axiom in ecology is that diversity begets stability. We will only be successful in the future if we have diversity. And diversity in all its forms, in all its shapes, is what University College Cork we will ensure inclusivity.
I think that one thing is important, that if a student is struggling or a student does think that they need supports, is to ask for them, because there's no point in struggling on their own. There's so many supports out there that are available to students.
And I know every lecturer wants the best for their students. They should give them equal opportunities to be able to unleash their potential.
Some lecturers are very, very friendly and they want the best for the student, and they go above and beyond for their students, which is, it's motivational, because it's like, that person is doing all the best they can to show that they want to see me.
I think we're looking at a much more blended, holistic model.
So the future of learning and teaching is really very bright in University College Cork, one where we speak to our values, the values of an education, of inclusivity, of respect, but also of talent, and that we grow talent, and we use whatever methodologies, pedagogies, and techniques that are evolving to position the best learning experience for our students and to build on the fantastic work that's gone on.
So let's talk a little about UDL at play in UCC, and I think in terms of the practical pieces, that's most important to me. What we did to really ensure that the student voice was at the centre is we brought on a number of students in intern positions. So last summer, we took on 4 student interns to work on module redevelopment, module review. We looked at accessibility quite a lot. We brought in Blackboard Ally to really look at what is the level of accessibility. And I want to touch on a few of the figures that we worked on in terms of how we brought those modules on. The second one I want to look at is how we brought in a UDL college partner model. And this is really something that we'd heard quite a lot about. Obviously, as a university, we can drive this centrally, but it's much more impactful if it's coming from within the colleges, if it's coming from within the schools of a university. So we put our investment into our colleges, into our schools, and we allow them come up with what do they need to do to build greater awareness within their school, within their college. And it's really interesting to see some of the results that we have. So we had 7 specific projects. 7 or 8 of them have already gone for ethical application. And really what I see there is not just impact on a university level, but actually impact on a national level. Equally, we wanted to ensure that we could look at UDL principles and we could embed UDL within the curriculum. So it's all well and good, again, having awareness, having drive, having courses, but we wanted to ensure that UDL is explicitly called out in terms of our module design and our module redevelopment. So what we did is we brought a group of lecturing staff, a group of students that sat on those modules to redesign that module from the inside out. And that was a really impactful opportunity at UCC. Let's dig back to some of the numbers in terms of our Ally program. So what we did is we brought in 4 students. We worked with 18 lecturers across the College of Business and Law, and we worked on those 18 modules over 8 weeks. And what we saw was an increase of 22% on average. Some of them were up to 60%. But 2,000 students are going to benefit from that impact just in that academic year alone. Now, I think there's some interesting stuff here for us, obviously, that we dug into a little bit later. But it's our commitment to involving the student voice that's core. So we're bringing in 16 interns next summer. We brought on 3 interns this academic semester and next. And it's really about how do we embed their voice. The interns that we have in at the moment are corely working on delivering and co-designing all of our staff training now within our inclusive UCC modules. So I'm going to pass back now to Laura in terms of what we plan to do over the next coming academic year.
So where do we go from here? Well, UCC has evidenced a very long-standing commitment to UDL. And as James has said, we are really committed to furthering this work to deliver a truly inclusive and responsive experience for our students and our staff. So some of our key actions for the coming academic year and beyond include the following. So building on the suite of continuous professional development, or CPD, resources that are already established at UCC, it is our intention to develop a comprehensive but flexible, inclusive practice pathway for all of our staff who support student learning. And we are really committed to continuing to support all of our colleagues to engage with this CPD pathway. Secondly, and really, really crucially, we are going to appoint a UDL advisor. And it will be the role of the UDL advisor to lead out on institution-wide UDL integration in the curriculum. And also, really importantly, the UDL advisor will lead out on Students as Partners initiatives, ensuring that the student voice continues to be central to our work. And then, of course, we recognise that key to our long-term success will be the design and implementation of models for long-term capacity building and sustainability. So at UCC, we are going to develop a long-term train-the-trainer models approach, which will allow UCC to grow as a national and international hub of excellence for professionals who engage in inclusive teaching and learning enhancement.
So we've heard about the rich history of teaching, learning and UDL at UCC. We've heard about the practical things that we're actually implementing over the last while, and really the core obviously is bringing the student voice in. We've heard what we're planning to do over the next year and a half, but I think most importantly, what are we going to do to embed this? How are we going to make it, I guess, the strategic mission of the university? How do we embed it into everything we do? We don't just want UDL to be something that we do within teaching and learning. We want UDL to be something that we do across the board. Our campus, our digital infrastructure, our student and professional services. It needs to be in everything that we do intrinsically. Now, you might be wondering, how is he going to do that? Well, I'm looking down here because I see our Deputy President and Registrar, and hopefully he's going to agree with me. But we're building our next 5-year strategic plan. And our goal is very much to have UDL and universal design at the core. It's not just going to be something that we put on at the end. It's not going to be a nice to have. It's absolutely going to be something that we bake in from the start. I think every student that walks through the gates of UCC is very much entitled to the equitable experience that Daisy's had. They should have access to that variability in terms of learning that Daisy's had, and the success of that is just phenomenal for us. And it's one of the core reasons why we are so passionate about ensuring that universal design is built in and, I guess, integrated into everything that we do. Obviously, we have our senior management buy-in, but equally, over the last 30 plus years, even 84 as year was born, so I'm going to put that out there, 30 plus years, UDL and I guess teaching and learning has been really core to everything. How are we going to bring that forward? And a good friend and mentor of mine, Marion McCarthy, often reminds me of the motto at UCC, and that is, where Finbar taught, let Munster learn. Thank you so much.